Dr. Abdullah bin Abdulaziz Alrabeea, a consultant at the Royal Court and Supervisor General of King Salman Center for Relief and Humanitarian Aid, has held talks with the UN Undersecretary General for Humanitarian Affairs, Mark Lowcock, on the sidelines of the high-level humanitarian meeting to enhance humanitarian response in Yemen, which was held in Riyadh. During the meeting convened by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia here yesterday, the two sides discussed ways of enhancing humanitarian action in Yemen and underscored the importance of coordination in this regard, confirming the importance of using decentralization as an appropriate mechanism for work through establishing UN offices throughout Yemen. Following the meeting, Lowcock called for more coordination of work among humanitarian relief providers in Yemen. The humanitarian violations against Yemeni people in the areas controlled by Houthi militia, which represented in using special and public constructions as secret detonation centers to avenge their opponents, and more details in the next report.
The Yemeni people, particularly those living in areas controlled by militia of Houthis, still suffering from the humanitarian situation due to the siege and repression imposed on them by armed group of Houthi. Houthis not only deprive employees from their monthly salaries that caused by looting of public money and spreading out epidemics and severe malnutrition in Yemen. Today, it is going ahead to violate the international laws through using some special and public constructions as secret detention centers to avenge their opponents. United Nations clarified that Houthi militia detain civilians in illegal prisons that lack minimum legal conditions and humanitarian standards, as well as judicial oversight.
If we are talking about the secret detonation of Houthi militia against people in areas controlled by them, we can say that all Sana'a city became as a big jail of Houthi armed group, because everyone will request his right or show his refusal will be in detention.
This kind of violations, of course, are going to exacerbating the suffering of arbitrarily detained civilians that reached to more than 208 secret detention centers in the governorates controlled by militia of Houthi. Different sources, including victims and eyewitnesses, confirmed that their detainees in secret jails are subjected to the physical and psychological torture and were denied their basic rights as granted by the international law. The secret prisons are managed without judicial supervision and taking into consideration the health conditions as a form of humiliation.
All repression measures against people considered as logical behavior for cop power get used to violate all humanitarian laws, like using private institutions as secret detention in order to terrorize society.
It's worth mentioning that some United Nations organizations documented extra-legal detention and enforced disappearance of many civilians by Houthi militia and called them to stop immediately detaining innocent civilians and enabling their rights. Obviously, the humanitarian violations against the Yemeni people continues, especially in the areas controlled by the militia of Houthis, which represented as using the public and special constructions and using it as a secret detention centers to avenge on their opponents. Marwan Nabil, Saudi 2, Aden Province.
In Yemen, 2 coup militia were killed in the attacks by the National Army in Nahm Directorate east of Sana'a. A field source said in a statement that the National Army engaged in fierce battles with the coup militias in several locations in the Nahm Directorate, leaving 4 members of the coup militia dead and wounded at least 50 others during the clashes. Meanwhile, an association made up of mothers of kidnapped prisoners in Yemen's Ib Governorate have appealed for the quick intervention to save the lives of their children and release those arbitrarily abducted and imprisoned by coup militias and forces loyal to ousted former President Abdullah Saleh. The association stressed that the abductees became infected with chronic and serious diseases, which requires their quick release to receive the necessary treatment in hospitals. Ahmed Asiri, deputy head of the General Intelligence in Saudi Arabia, confirmed that the coalition, which supports the legitimacy in Yemen, has contributed to maintaining the factors and identify of the Yemeni state, and this is clearly demonstrated by the legitimate government's ability to communicate with the international community through its embassies around the world. During the meeting, which gathered international parties interested in humanitarian assistance under the sponsorship of the King Salman Center for Relief and Humanitarian Aid held in Riyadh, Asiri stressed the importance of holding a workshop for the specialists and executives to put detailed plans to improve the performance of relief and humanitarian work in Yemen, addressing shortages in all aspects, whether people working within Yemen or the mechanisms and procedures used to deliver aid to all Yemeni governorates, and to follow up the disbursements of funds provided by states and international donors, pointing out that the kingdom and the Gulf countries fulfilled their financial obligations. A seventh round of Syrian peace talks started in Kazakhstan's capital